My body is my choice. You can't demand anything from me. Trevor's voice was sharp, almost cruel, as he turned his back to me in our bedroom, his phone glowing in his hand. I stood there in silence, frozen, the silk nightgown I had chosen with trembling anticipation now feeling like a costume in the wrong play. It was our 6-week anniversary. 6 weeks of marriage. 6 weeks of silence in a bed that should have been warm. 6 weeks of wondering if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. And in that moment, I knew the fairy tale I thought I had stepped into was beginning to rot at its core. My name is Justine Crawford and I'm 27 years old. When Trevor Caldwell asked me to marry him last spring in Denver, I thought I had finally found my happily ever after. The proposal had been magical. A candlelit dinner overlooking the city skyline, Trevor kneeling with a ring that sparkled like a promise of forever. My heart had soared as I said yes, surrounded by strangers who applauded, believing they were witnessing the beginning of a love story. The wedding was everything a girl could dream of. A ceremony at the prestigious Highlands Country Club, friends and family beaming as we exchanged vows. A reception that sparkled with music, champagne, and laughter. Everyone envied me. Everyone. They said I was lucky to have found a man so perfect, so charming, so devoted. But what none of them knew was that perfection had an expiration date. And it came the moment the honeymoon ended. Before I continue, let me pause here. If you've ever been made to feel unwanted by someone who swore to love you, or if you've ever questioned your own worth because of someone else's cruelty, then this story is for you. Please hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life stories, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like mine find the people who need them most. Now let's go back to that first night after the wedding. Aspen was the dream destination for our honeymoon. Snow-capped mountains, a luxury lodge with roaring fireplaces, days filled with skiing and evenings meant for closeness. I had packed carefully, imagining romance, intimacy, and whispered promises in the glow of candlelight. But each night Trevor claimed exhaustion. He would pull the covers over his head, mumbling about being too tired. I brushed it off at first. Weddings are stressful. Honeymoons can be overwhelming. Maybe he just needed time. But 1 week passed. Then 3. And the excuses piled higher than the snow outside our lodge window. I reached for his hand one evening as we watched the fire. He pulled it back. I leaned in for a kiss the next night. He turned his cheek. I slipped into bed wearing the lingerie I had saved for this trip. He rolled away, muttering that I was pressuring him. By the end of the honeymoon, I was a bride who had never been touched by her husband. When we returned to Denver, I hoped things would change. Surely in the comfort of our new home, we could find the closeness that had been missing. But instead things grew colder. Trevor was affectionate during our 8-month courtship. He would pull me close during movies, hold my hand in Washington Park, kiss me softly as he dropped me at my apartment door. I thought intimacy was natural to us. But now, married and behind closed doors, it was as if a switch had been flipped. The man who once whispered sweet words now flinched when I brushed against him. The warmth in his green eyes had been replaced by a chill that seeped into my bones. 6 weeks into our marriage, I couldn't take the silence anymore. That night, I put on the silk nightgown, lit a candle on the nightstand, and whispered, "Trevor, we're married. I'm your wife. I just want to understand why you won't even hold my hand, let alone." He cut me off, his eyes flashing. "I told you my body belongs to me. Marriage doesn't give you ownership over it. You need to respect my boundaries." The word boundaries felt like a slap. Boundaries? Since when did loving your spouse become a violation? Since when did reaching for your husband's hand become pressure? "This isn't normal," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Married couples are intimate. They share a bed. They touch each other. Trevor laughed bitterly, the sound cutting through the air. "You want to talk about normal? Normal is respecting your partner's choices. Normal is not pressuring someone into physical contact. This is normal." I stared at him, my hands trembling at my sides. My husband, the man I had promised my forever to, was looking at me not with love but with contempt. The days that followed were worse. Trevor avoided me whenever possible. He buried himself in work, in his phone, in anything that wasn't me. At family dinners he played the role of the doting husband, smiling and holding my hand under the table. But the moment we returned home, his hand slipped away like mine was poison. I began to doubt myself. Was I being unreasonable? Selfish? Had I misunderstood what marriage meant? I cried in the shower so he wouldn't see. I rehearsed conversations in the mirror, trying to find the words that might fix us. I even called my best friend in tears, whispering my fears. Justine, she said softly, something's not right. No man marries a woman just to lock her out like this. Her words echoed in my mind louder each day. No man marries a woman just to lock her out. The night of our 6-week anniversary when he hurled those words, my body, my choice, I realized something chilling. This wasn't just distance. This wasn't just a rough patch. It was deception. And if I wanted the truth, I'd have to uncover it myself. Because Trevor wasn't just protecting his boundaries. He was protecting a secret. They say marriage is built on trust. But what do you do when the person you trust most uses that very word as a weapon? That's what life with Trevor became. A constant barrage of twisted definitions, words bent until they no longer resembled love but chains. The morning after our 6-week anniversary fight, Trevor acted as though nothing had happened. He kissed my cheek on his way out, coffee mug in one hand, briefcase in the other. His lips brushed my skin like an obligation, cold and rushed. See you tonight, he said, his tone clipped. I stared after him, confused. Did he not remember the storm of words from last night? Or was he pretending nothing had happened, hoping I'd doubt my own memory? By noon I had my answer. He texted, "Don't bring up last night. We're fine. Just respect me and everything will be okay." Respect. That was his favorite shield. Any time I brought up the loneliness gnawing at me, he hid behind that word, as though wanting affection from my husband was the same as violating him. And slowly I began to feel like the one in the wrong. At dinners with friends, Trevor was all charm. He poured me wine, told stories that painted us as the perfect couple, slipped his arm around my shoulders like he couldn't bear to be apart from me. I smiled through it, my cheeks aching, my chest heavy. Later in the car I whispered, "Why can't you be like that when it's just us?" He smirked, eyes fixed on the road. "Because in public I have to perform. At home I shouldn't need to. Perform." The word chilled me. So our marriage was just theater then? A play for the world while I starved in the wings. The gaslighting grew worse with every week. If I reached for his hand in bed, he accused me of being manipulative. If I tried to kiss him, he pulled back and muttered, "Stop pressuring me." If I cried, he sighed and said I was being dramatic. "Not every marriage is about sex, Justine," he said one night, irritation dripping from his tone. "You're obsessed with it. It's pathetic." "I'm not asking for sex," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. "I'm asking for intimacy. For connection. For you." But he turned away, dismissing me with silence. The contradictions gnawed at me. During our courtship, Trevor couldn't keep his hands off me. He held my waist in crowded rooms, kissed me in the middle of conversations, whispered about how he couldn't wait for our future together. But now, he recoiled like I was poison. What changed? Why had the warmth drained out of him the moment we said I do? Friends began to notice the cracks too. At brunch one Sunday, my best friend Maya leaned across the table, lowering her voice. "You don't look happy, Justine. Is everything okay?" I forced a smile. "We're just adjusting. Marriage is an adjustment, right?" Her eyes narrowed. "Adjusting shouldn't look like this." Trevor, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand and laughed. "She's fine. We're fine. Newlywed jitters, that's all." But beneath the table, his grip tightened like a warning. "Smile. Agree. Don't expose him." So I smiled. I nodded. And I let my own voice be buried under his performance. Nights became unbearable. I would slip into bed, the space between us colder than any winter outside. Sometimes I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of him breathing beside me as if he were a stranger I had accidentally let into my home. Other nights, I cried into the pillow, biting the fabric to muffle the sound. If he noticed, he never said a word. Then came the night I confronted him again. "Trevor," I said softly, "we can't go on like this. I need to understand what's happening." He sighed, tossing his phone onto the nightstand. "Here we go again. I'm serious. You don't touch me, you barely talk to me, and when I ask why, you accuse me of being controlling. That's not marriage. That's punishment." His eyes flashed. "Punishment? Don't turn this around on me. You're the one making demands. You're the one who can't respect boundaries." I shook my head, heart pounding. Wanting to hold my husband's hand isn't a demand. Wanting my husband to want me isn't disrespect. His laugh was sharp, bitter. You're delusional. You're lucky I married you at all. Lucky. The word burned. I wasn't lucky. I was trapped. That night as I lay awake beside him, a new thought began to take shape. This wasn't just neglect. This wasn't just emotional cruelty. This was manipulation. Trevor wanted me small. He wanted me doubting myself, questioning my worth, shrinking until I was too weak to see the truth. But the truth was there, whispering in the cracks. Late nights at the office, the way he shielded his phone, the sudden business trips that never added up. Something else was going on. And for the first time, instead of blaming myself, I began to wonder what Trevor was hiding. Because no man builds walls this high without something on the other side. And I was ready to find out. By the 8th week of our marriage, I stopped pretending. The laughter in public, the smiles for friends, the small talk with his family. It was all theater. When the curtains closed, Trevor became a ghost in his own home. And ghosts leave trails. The first clue came one night when he claimed he had urgent paperwork at the office. He left at 8 p.m. in a suit freshly pressed, his cologne lingering in the air. But Trevor worked in finance. No clients were meeting that late. I waited. Midnight came. No call. No text. At 1 a.m. I heard his key turn in the lock. He slipped into bed without a word, his hair damp from a shower he hadn't taken at home. Where were you? I asked softly, staring at the ceiling. He sighed. Work. Don't start. And with that he rolled over. The second clue was his phone. Trevor had once been careless with it, leaving it on counters, handing it to me to order food, laughing when I teased him about his embarrassing playlist. But now the device was welded to his hand. He kept it face down on the table. He carried it into the bathroom. He slept with it tucked under his pillow. And when it buzzed at night, he would tense, his eyes darting to me before swiping it quickly away. What's so secret? I asked one evening as we sat in the living room. He smirked without looking up. Privacy isn't secrecy, Justine. Learn the difference. But I did learn. I learned that secrecy always wears the mask of privacy. The third clue came from his clothes. Trevor was meticulous, but even meticulous men slip. One afternoon as I gathered laundry, I found a shirt that smelled faintly of perfume. Not mine. A scent floral, expensive, clinging stubbornly to the fabric. When I confronted him, he laughed. You're imagining things. Probably from sitting too close to someone at a meeting. But the scent wasn't probably. It was undeniable. And as I pressed the shirt to my face, inhaling proof of a life I wasn't part of, I felt my stomach twist. By now, doubt had turned into suspicion and suspicion into determination. So I began to watch him more closely. I noted the way he shaved twice in one day before working late. The way his mood lifted when certain texts arrived. The way his tie was crooked when he came home as though it had been pulled loose in a hurry. And little by little, the image of my perfect husband crumbled. Still part of me clung to denial. I wanted to believe there was another explanation. Stress. Depression. Maybe even health issues he was too proud to admit. But denial only lasts so long when the evidence piles up at your feet. The breaking point came one Friday. Trevor had left for another business dinner, his tone sharp when I asked where. I waited an hour before grabbing my coat and following the route I knew his office dinners usually took. But he wasn't at the steakhouse downtown. He wasn't at the hotel conference room. I found him at a wine bar, tucked in the corner with a woman I had never seen before. She was striking, dark hair, red lips, laughter that floated like smoke. And Trevor leaned toward her with a softness I hadn't seen in months. His hand brushed hers across the table. His smile was real. I froze at the doorway, my breath shallow, the world tilting. There was no mistaking it. The boundaries, the coldness, the accusations, they were all a cover. Trevor wasn't withholding intimacy because of my body, my choice. He was giving it away to someone else. I stumbled back into the night, my heart pounding, the cold Denver air burning my lungs. Tears blurred the city lights, but beneath the grief, something else took root. Anger. The kind of anger that doesn't scream. The kind of anger that waits. I didn't confront him that night. I let him come home, smelling faintly of wine and perfume, kissing my cheek with lips that had just pressed against hers. I smiled back. Because confrontation wasn't enough anymore. Confrontation would give him excuses, lies, manipulation. I wanted more than the truth. I wanted justice. So I began to plan. Carefully. Quietly. meticulously, because Trevor thought he had fooled me. But what he didn't know was that the cold bed he left behind had become my war room. And every night he turned away from me, I sharpened my resolve. Secrets rot in silence. But when you shine a light on them, they shrivel. And I was done living in the dark. After the night I saw Trevor with the woman at the wine bar, my world snapped into focus. All the late nights, the locked phone, the excuses, they weren't paranoia. They were patterns. But if I wanted to expose him, I needed proof. So I became two women. To his face, I was the compliant wife, nodding, smiling, letting him believe he still controlled the narrative. But in secret, I was the investigator, watching, listening, documenting. The phone was my first battlefield. Trevor guarded it like a dragon over gold. But dragons slip when they get cocky. One morning as he showered, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it with trembling hands, my pulse racing. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. Marissa. The preview of the message was enough to make me sick. Last night was perfect. Can't wait for more. I snapped a photo with my own phone and placed his carefully back before he emerged. My hands shook, but my mind was steady. I had my first piece of evidence. From there I collected more. Receipts stuffed into his jacket pockets. Dinners for two at restaurants we'd never visited. Credit card statements with hotel charges in Denver on nights he claimed to be working late. Perfume lingering on collars that weren't mine. Piece by piece the puzzle came together. And the picture was ugly. Trevor hadn't just rejected me, he had betrayed me. The cruelest part wasn't the affair itself. It was the way he weaponized his betrayal to crush me. He accused me of being needy while giving himself freely to another woman. He lectured me about boundaries while crossing every one of mine. He gaslit me into silence while building a secret life behind my back. And every time I thought about it, the humiliation burned hotter. But beneath the humiliation was something sharper. Resolve. I confided in Maya one night, my voice shaking as I laid out the evidence across her kitchen table. Her eyes widened as she scanned the photos, the receipts, the screenshots. Oh my God, Justine. He's not just cheating. He's manipulating you into thinking you're crazy while doing it. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I thought I was broken. I thought I wasn't enough. But it was him all along. Maya reached for my hand. So what are you going to do? I took a deep breath, the first full breath I'd had in weeks. I'm going to make sure everyone sees who he really is. From that night on I prepared. I saved every message, every receipt, every photo. I created a folder so thorough even Trevor's silver tongue couldn't twist out of it. But I didn't just want to confront him in private. That would give him the chance to lie, to twist the narrative again. No, Trevor's downfall needed an audience. Because the same way he had humiliated me in silence, I would humiliate him in spectacle. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. His parents were hosting a family dinner, inviting relatives, colleagues, and a few of Trevor's closest friends. A celebration of his recent promotion, they called it. Trevor beamed when he told me, arrogance dripping from every word. You'll come, won't you? Try not to embarrass me. I smiled sweetly. Of course. I wouldn't miss it. He didn't know the evidence folder sat ready on my laptop, a digital bomb waiting to detonate. The night of the dinner I dressed in quiet elegance. A navy dress, pearls at my throat, hair swept back. Trevor liked to parade me like a trophy, so I let him. I played the role one last time. The dinner was lavish, laughter echoing through the Caldwell estate. Trevor basked in the glow of admiration, telling stories of long nights at the office, colleagues nodding along. And all the while my anger simmered beneath the surface, steady and controlled. When dessert was served, his father raised a toast. To Trevor, a man of integrity, of discipline, of success. Glasses clinked. Smiles glowed. Trevor's arm tightened around my waist. And that was when I stood. Actually, I said, my voice clear, there's something you should all see. The room quieted, curiosity rippling across polished faces. Trevor stiffened beside me. Justine, sit down. I shook my head. No. You've had your performance. Now it's time for mine. I pulled out the folder, projecting photos, messages, and receipts onto the large screen in the dining room. Gasps filled the air. Laughter died. Marissa, last night was perfect. Trevor's receipt, Hotel Luxe, one king bed. A photo of him at the wine bar, his hand brushing hers, his smile real in a way it hadn't been with me in months. The silence that followed was deafening. Trevor's face drained of color. This is out of context. No, I cut him off, my voice steady. This is the context you've been hiding while telling everyone else I was the problem. While telling me I was broken. While lecturing me about respect while giving mine away to someone else. His mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest. His father's face turned red with shame. Colleagues muttered. Friends looked away. Trevor's mask had shattered. And everyone saw what lay beneath. The silence that followed my reveal was the kind that drowns. A moment earlier, the room had been buzzing with laughter, champagne flutes clinking, Trevor at the center of attention. But now every eye was on him. Every secret I'd gathered, the texts, the receipts, the photos, glared down from the screen like witnesses in a courtroom. And Trevor Caldwell, Mr. Integrity, Mr. Perfect Husband, sat frozen at the defense table with no words left to twist. His mother's voice cracked first. Trevor, what is this? He stammered, his face pale. It's not what it looks like. Those texts, they're jokes. The receipts, work dinners. I cut him off, my voice steady. Work dinners that end at hotels? With perfume clinging to your clothes? With Marissa writing last night was perfect? Tell me, Trevor, is that also part of your job description? Gasps rippled through the table. A colleague coughed awkwardly. Someone set their glass down a little too hard. Trevor's father leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowed with disgust. Son, he said coldly, is this true? Trevor opened his mouth but no sound came. And in that silence, the truth roared louder than any denial ever could. For weeks, I had lived in shadows, doubting myself, questioning my sanity as Trevor spun lies about boundaries and respect. But in that moment, under the glow of chandeliers and the scrutiny of his family, colleagues and friends, the mask he'd worn crumbled. And all I felt was clarity. This, I said, gesturing to the screen, is the man I married. The man who told me I was broken, that I was lucky he even chose me, while he gave everything I begged for to another woman. Murmurs spread across the room. Sympathy flickered in the eyes of a few relatives. Others looked away, ashamed to be caught watching. Trevor's colleague muttered, "Unbelievable," shaking his head. His mother wept quietly. His father's jaw tightened with fury. Trevor shrank. He tried one last time, his voice breaking. "Christine, please. We can fix this. Don't do this here." But I shook my head, calm, resolute. "You already did this here, Trevor. Every time you lied to me, every time you played the perfect husband in public while humiliating me in private, you chose this stage. I'm just turning the lights on." The room erupted then, voices overlapping, relatives whispering, colleagues whispering louder. Trevor buried his face in his hands, his carefully polished image burning to ashes in front of everyone who once admired him. And I stood taller than I had in months. Afterward, I walked out of the dining room with my head high, leaving Trevor to the wreckage he created. His mother called after me, her voice breaking, but I didn't turn back. I didn't owe them an explanation. I owed myself freedom. Later that night, as I packed a bag back at the house, Trevor stormed in, his face twisted with rage. "How could you do that to me?" he spat. I froze, then laughed, the sound startling even to me. "To you? Trevor, I gave you chances. I begged for honesty. I tried to save what we had. You destroyed it. I just made sure everyone saw what you did." His face drained of color again, but this time with something closer to fear than anger. "You'll regret this," he whispered. "No," I said softly, zipping my bag. "You will." The next morning I filed for divorce. By noon word had spread. Friends texted me in shock. Colleagues whispered. Trevor's name turned sour in the mouths that once praised him. His father refused to cover for him at the firm. His mother stopped answering his calls. And Marissa? She disappeared the moment the spotlight hit, leaving him abandoned in the rubble of his own lies. The reckoning was complete. Trevor, who once mocked me for being needy, was left utterly alone. Me. I walked out lighter, freer, stronger. Because revenge isn't always about shouting. Sometimes it's about standing in a crowded room, telling the truth, and watching the walls crumble around the person who thought they could control you. That night, as I sat in my friend Maya's apartment, a glass of wine in my hand, she asked me if I felt guilty. I thought for a moment, then shook my head. No. He used my pain as his cover. He told me intimacy was pressure, love was manipulation, marriage was a performance. But in the end, the only act was his. And it's over. Maya squeezed my hand, her eyes shining. And I finally smiled. Trevor once told me my body, my choice. And he was right. But what he didn't know was that my choice would be freedom. And my revenge was making sure the world knew it too. The divorce papers slid across the polished oak table, the sound echoing in the quiet office. Trevor's hands trembled as he picked them up, his once proud jaw clenched, his eyes bloodshot. He had been unraveling ever since the dinner. Colleagues avoiding him, friends whispering behind his back, even his parents refusing to cover for him anymore. And now, with the stroke of a pen, I was cutting the last thread binding us together. He looked up at me, anger flickering in his gaze. After everything, you're really going through with this? I held his stare, calm and steady. After everything, how could I not? You're throwing away a marriage, he hissed. I leaned back in my chair, my voice even. No, Trevor. You threw it away the moment you decided betrayal was easier than honesty. The moment you weaponized words like boundaries and respect to cover your lies. The marriage I believed in never existed. You destroyed it long before I signed these papers. His mouth opened as if to argue, but no words came. For once, Trevor Caldwell had nothing left to say. As I signed my name, a strange feeling washed over me. Not grief. Not even anger. Relief. The weight I had carried for months lifted, replaced by something lighter, freer. I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was reclaiming myself. The weeks that followed felt like learning to breathe again. I moved into a small but cozy apartment downtown, the kind with creaky floors and sunlight that spilled through the windows in the mornings. It wasn't a mansion, it wasn't prestigious, but it was mine. I bought new sheets, soft lavender-scented, and made a point of sleeping in the middle of the bed, stretching out like a queen in her own castle. For the first time in months, the bed was warm again. Not because of another body, but because of peace. I started painting again, something I had abandoned during the whirlwind of wedding planning and Trevor's icy silence. Colors bloomed on canvas, messy and vibrant, reflecting the emotions I had bottled up for too long. Maya visited often, bringing wine and laughter. You look like yourself again, she said one night, curling up on my couch. I smiled. I feel like myself again. Of course, the whispers about Trevor continued. His career at the firm took a hit after the scandal, promotions slipping out of reach. Colleagues who once praised him avoided him now, unwilling to be tainted by the fallout. He called me once, weeks after the divorce was finalized. Justine, he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Can we talk? Maybe start over. I laughed, not bitterly but with genuine amusement. Start over? Trevor, I already did. Without you. And I hung up. Because starting over didn't mean clinging to someone who broke me. It meant choosing myself. One afternoon, as I sat on my balcony sipping coffee, I thought back to that night in our bedroom when Trevor had first thrown those words at me. My body is my choice. Back then they had felt like chains. A cold rejection. A dismissal of everything I longed for. But now I understood something he never did. He was right. My body is my choice. And I choose not to let it be diminished, disrespected, or disregarded. I choose not to let anyone else's lies define my worth. I choose freedom. Looking back, the betrayal still stung, but it no longer consumed me. Because revenge wasn't about destroying Trevor. It was about reclaiming what he tried to take. My dignity, my voice, my truth. And I had done that. So when people ask me now what happened to my marriage, I smile and tell them the truth. I married a man who thought lies could replace love. A man who thought boundaries were weapons. A man who thought I would shrink under the weight of his betrayal. But instead I rose. And when I walked away, I carried nothing from him. Except the reminder that sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply choosing happiness without the person who tried to steal it. Trevor once told me my body was my choice. And he was right. Because I chose freedom. And it was the best choice I ever made.